talk
I
about
like
that. That's going to hurt my feelings. But yeah, speaking of the next generation and moving on and all that other stuff, we could talk about, your time as a SEAL, I think the entire podcast, it's a whole hour. But I was reading your bio. I got on your website and stalked you a little bit. And you did 13 years, which is fairly unusual. You and Zach, I think, got out after 10 years to pursue business opportunities or whatever, become entrepreneurs. What was that like? How'd you make that decision? And then I guess Mattbach was the first thing you did.
Yeah, so Mattbach was, so we started Mattbach actually while we were still active, and just kind of had it as a side project. We were starting to build products, and a lot of them, a lot of our early successes and some of our best-selling products still to this day came from Iraq and Afghanistan, just from the need of why is everybody other, like every other manufacturer is just copying everybody else, right? And it's just like this is BS. Like okay, everybody can make a plate carrier. How do we how do we figure out how to do something better than everybody else? And so looking at that and relying on guys on the ground and their experience and talking to guys and just really listening to feedback. So we had Mattbach going, and we were both pursuing other things. Zach got out, went to med school for like 3.5 years at one point, and then decided, all right, being a doctor is not what he wanted to do. So, and then for me, I really thought that I was going to continue on and do a full 20. I planned to go screen for Dam Neck and go do that. And then kind of on my last workup, my now ex-wife, her and I split. We had 2 kids, went through a divorce during that. And then that deployment was just miserable for me. And I was like, even before we went on deployment, I told my command, I was like, hey, listen, I'm done. I'm done after this. Like I can't do this and be a dad, and I'm not going to sacrifice being a dad. And I was like, so I decided to stay in the reserves and do that. I at one point had an opportunity to do kind of the active reserve piece, where I was going to be like more of an ops role for the reserve teams, and hold down the guys that were mobilized, but that went away. And so then I went unemployed for like 3.5 months. So that was great. Because at the time, Mattbach wasn't in a position to take on my salary or replace my salary. And really, because we were reinvesting every dollar back into the company. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, I need a job. And they're like, we don't have the capital to do that. We've been putting everything back into product development. So, I went and started work, and I did investment banking for about a year, to learn how to raise capital, structure deals. I thought that it was going to be, and it has been a great just education. For a year, I learned from a guy that did, was 20 at the time. He was 23 years in the industry. I got to work underneath him for an entire year, help other companies raise capital, be in front of these investors, and then just understand what that looks like to help me as someone who's transitioned. So I did that for a year. And then at that point, Strike Force was really starting to kick off. And he basically looked at me and he was like, listen, like, I hate to tell you this, but like, you really need to go do that. Like, I hate that I'm going to lose you, but like, in good faith, I can't also have you stay here and do this. Like, you need to go devote everything into Strike Force. And I was like, okay. So we're still good friends. I'm still, keep in contact with him pretty regularly. And so we did the Strike Force piece. We ended up just selling that, closing everything, actually the day before Veterans Day. So 10 November this year, we finalized everything there. So Mattbach ended up selling all of its shares of Strike Force and parted ways with the owners there. But so we did that for I guess almost 4 years or so. And from there, we've kind of started a couple other companies from there. But the transition was tough just because I went through a divorce. Like I said, was unemployed. Kind of thought I had things lined up, and those all fell through, and it was kind of hectic. And I tell guys all the time when they're transitioning, the biggest advice is, just like you have your comms plan, your pace plan, like you need to have the exact same thing. You need a primary, alternate, contingent, emergency, like, and then like literally like to go to hell, like, hey, what am I doing now? And like, I hit that. I like when I was unemployed for those few months, I Ubered for a little bit to just get some money going. Like I needed income, and it was like, I can't sit here and do nothing. Like what do I do with my hands? Yeah. So
no, it's crazy because, if you're in the military, if you're 10 years ish or post 10 years and you ask someone for advice, like, hey, I'm thinking about getting out to do this thing, especially around like the 13-year mark, I think 99% of the people are going to tell you, man, just stick it out to 20.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about as a SEAL, as one of the team guys and all that other stuff. And you talked about having a pace plan and all that other stuff. Is there anything that you gained from that experience on team that helped you make it through that in particular?
Yeah, I mean, we use a lot of stuff that we learned in the team space. I think military veterans, it doesn't matter what organization, like a natural fit is being an entrepreneur. And some people don't want to, and that's fine, but I think it's just a natural fit for guys, because it's like you're constantly looking at, you're constantly have problems, right? And you're constantly trying to do more things with less resources. And it's constantly like, you're trying to figure something out and you don't really have everything in place, and you just kind of have to make it go. Right. And I think that every time I use a lot, I use the 5-paragraph op order whenever solved with problems for things, just go through that whole thing. It's such an easy, methodical plan that I had over a decade of doing. And I, did it thousands and thousands of times. When you when you look at workups to deployments and everything else like that, how many times have you built that plan out? It's like, I can do it in my sleep. It's like, so, okay, problem, boom, do. I can run through the 5-paragraph op order. I can partition stuff off and know, and it's changing some of the language. So like, for example, admin and comms on the 5-paragraph op order, right? So, your SMEAC. Well, for me, for that, like communication, that's my marketing plan. Like, that's like, now I'm calling it marketing, but in the military, we call it comms plan. And some of the admin and PSYOPs and all these things like that, and kind of the logistics piece of that. It's like, well, those are all the other things you need to do to make your business run or solve that problem. And it's like, it's such an easy plug and play. It's just rewiring the language, and just, you can't obviously call it a SMEAC. People would be like, so.
No, I love it, because we get that question all the time. Like, hey, if I join, what can I do afterwards? And my typical answer is, you can do whatever you want when you get out. And so I just kind of wanted to walk the dog on that and make sure everybody understands that, if you can make it in this community and you have a desire to do something else, which I think is the number one thing, is the want to do it, and those character traits and all that other stuff, is you can be successful at almost anything.
I'll tell you so the one thing that really helped me in that transition, and then just finding that. So like I said, I really thought that I was going to finish out and retire as a SEAL. And so for a couple of years, honestly, from the time I got off active duty till the time that this guy, the guy that I work for, Bob, asked me, he's like, in less than 3 sentences, what do you want your tombstone to say? And I was like, dang, I don't know.